Hi, I'm Teri KO4WFP Whiskey Foxtrot Papa, also known as the POTA Babe, and in May, I posted a video on this channel of 3 action items that anyone can take as they work toward a goal. As a reminder, those actions are taking small steps, setting yourself up for success, and accountability. In that video, I specifically addressed Morse code ham radio operators and their fear of getting on and operating on the air. But these actions are applicable to any goal you have, whether it relates to your job, other hobbies, other skills, relationships, etc. So in this video, I'll share how I use those 3 action items to achieve a goal I set for myself this year, and that is to operate as a net control station. Now, there are those of you that are probably watching this that are not ham radio operators, or you're new to ham radio, so let me give you some explanation as to what a net is and what a net control station does. In ham radio, there are 2 types of nets. There are traffic nets and there are general nets. A traffic net is like what most people think of when it comes to Morse code operators. Think of Western Union, right? Back in the day. A message would come in, and then ham radio operators, or it's not ham radio operators, but telegraph operators, would transmit that message from person to person until it reaches its destination. That's a traffic net, and that's not what I'm talking about in this video. And then there are general nets. That is what I'm talking about in this video. A general net is like a group of friends that just converse with one another. Say a group of you go down to a cafe and you sit around a table and you talk. That's what a general net is like. Now, in that situation, you have 2 cues that you can follow the conversation, right? You have verbal cues, what you hear, but you also have visual cues. You can watch who is speaking, and if there are multiple people speaking or laughing at the same time, you can see that. But on the air, in ham radio, we only have verbal cues, only what we can hear, and hence the need for a net control. A net control station is somebody who guides the conversation so everyone can participate, but it doesn't become chaotic. Now, how does a net function? A net control station clears the frequency. That's where the net is held over the air. They clear the frequency, and then they ask for people to check in. These are people who want to participate in the net. They get a list of those call signs, and then they have an individual short conversation with each of those people. And there's typical things that are shared, the RSTs, which I'll explain in a minute, as well as the weather, and there might even be a few personal items that they want to share. The net control station will work through that list. Sometimes there's just 1 round, sometimes there's 2. When that person reaches the end of the net, they thank everyone for participating. They might list, again, a list of who actually checked in, and then they call Q and F, or say that the end 73 that the net is finished and that the frequency is clear. Now, imagine doing all that with Morse code. Challenging, not easy, but doable. And that's the goal that I set for myself this year, to act as a net control station in a CW net. So let's talk about how I use those 3 action items that I shared at the beginning of the video to achieve this goal. The first action is to take small steps, and I started that by checking in every week into 2 nets, the OMIC net, which is held on Wednesday evenings, and the Sideswiper net, which is held on Thursday evenings. And that's actually one of the Sideswiper nets, because the Sideswiper net also has 2 nets that operate on Sunday, but I'm not a regular participant in those. So when I checked into these nets on a regular basis, I gained knowledge, and that knowledge increased my confidence and helped me feel like this is something I could actually do. What knowledge did I gain? Call signs and the names of those who check in regularly, so I knew who to listen for. Propagation. In ham radio speak, that is basically how a signal travels from one station to another. This helped me, if I checked in every week, to hear who I was likely to hear and how the signal would change over the time period of the net. Because sometimes I might not be able to hear somebody very well at the beginning of the net, but over the next half an hour or 45 minutes, their signal becomes stronger. I also learned to more accurately gauge signal reports. Signal reports are that RST that I referenced earlier. And a signal report is a way to communicate to the other person, this is how strong your signal is, and this is how much difficulty or ease I'm having in reading what you're sending to me. RSTs are a very important piece of information when you're having conversations on the air. I also learned about Q codes. What the heck are Q codes? Q codes are short-term lingo or abbreviations that we who use Morse code use, and it helps convey a certain amount of information very quickly. Q codes that I learned, example, Q and I. Q and I, when you hear it, means check in. QSP. QSP means I need somebody to act as a relay so that I can reach a station that I can't hear very well. QNF. QNF means the frequency is clear if you hear that at the end of a net. So by checking in on a regular basis, I began to be comfortable with what these Q codes meant. I also learned the structure of a net. Remember, I walked you through what a net control station does typically in a net? Well, that's something I had to learn over time through checking in on a regular basis and participating. The second action that I took to set myself up for success is just that, is setting myself up for success to be able to accomplish this goal. And I did that in two ways. First of all, I got to know those who participated in these nets. Instead of being strangers, these people became friends. Friends who I knew would support and encourage me, and I supported and encouraged in return. I also trusted these operators, especially those who worked as net control stations. And because of these, an email group that corresponded after the net, I could ask specific questions. So if a situation arose, I could say, okay, why was that handled this way? And I found those answers very helpful in preparing me to eventually take that role of a net control station. The second thing I did to set myself up for success is to record the net, specifically the Sideswiper net, several evenings. That allowed me to have a script that I could write up and follow. I could practice beforehand the flow of the net, but also if I was nervous, I knew that I would have something that I could look at and find my place and help me to get back on track. The third action that I took to become a net control station is accountability. And I did that, again, by participating in those two nets. Now, the Sideswiper net has 4 net control stations, and these rotate throughout every month. They rotate one after another. But in some months, there are actually 5 Thursdays. That means there's a vacant slot. One of the net control stations typically volunteer for that. But in this case, I volunteered. And I was doing that to make myself accountable to everyone in the net, to say, I'm willing to do this. So how did it go? Well, it was a little bit of a trial by fire, as one of the other stations who checked in said. We had a rough start. We had QRM, which is a Q code for noise on the band, that particular band on which we operated, and that included the frequency that we use this time of year. This noise was so strong that there was no way for us to operate on the frequency. So what I did is I QSY'd. There's another Q code. QSY means let's change the frequency. I found another frequency that was free, and I moved the net to that frequency. And then I proceeded to go through my script, go through the net. Now, I did make some mistakes, and I did get lost once or twice, but I'm pleased. I'm pleased with how this first go went, and I got a lot of positive feedback from the other people that participated in the net. And guess what? I volunteered for the 5th Thursday in July. Yep, I'm coming back for more. I really enjoyed the challenge, and this is something that I think I can do well with time and experience. This is how we learn, right? We step out of our comfort zone, we try something new, we make mistakes, and then we learn and grow from those mistakes, and we continue our progress forward. So my challenge to you is, what goals do you have? And how can you use these 3 actions? Taking small steps, setting yourself up for success, and accountability. How can you use those 3 actions to achieve your goals? Speaking of accountability, for those of you who are CW operators, if you can't find an accountability partner, I'm going to make an offer. Please feel free to reach out to me via the email address that's listed on my QRZ page. Let me know what your goal is, when you plan to achieve it, and update me on a regular basis. I will be happy to be someone who encourages you during your stumbles and your obstacles and celebrates your successes. Why? Because ham radio and life is about relationships. It's about encouraging, supporting, and helping one another. Thank you so much for joining me here for this video, and I'll see you again on this channel in the future. And until then, for those of you who are CW operators, you know what I say. Get on the air and keep having fun with CW.